Ben here from the archive, and indeed, who else, as always. And hopefully I can do a dual commentary here. Hopefully I can bash out both volumes of 1900 Archive. But before anything else, this opening here with my very, very odd cover of Call Me by Blondie. Of course, the first 1900 Archive episode opened with Telephone Man by Mary Wilson. Barry Wilson. And I, of course, wanted another good phone song. And the first one that came to mind was Call Me by Blondie. And I just decided that I didn't really want to do the Content ID dance with YouTube. And so I figured, well, I'll just do my own cover. I've done it before. I did it on the Valentine's Day episode in the first season, the Dating Services episode, where I did a Debbie Gibson cover, just because I thought it would be funny. And, of course, Archive was still on Blip at the time, so I could have gotten away with playing the original version had I wanted to, but I just thought, yeah, I'm so silly. So I did that, and when initially I wanted to do a pretty straight cover of Call Me, and of course it just wasn't coming out, and I was just feeling punchy that day, and on the spur of the moment, I decided just to replace all the chords in Call Me with major sevenths to put it in lounge territory, and I started doing it in a bad Frank Sinatra impression, and I thought, I can do better than that, and so I tried it as a bad lounge singer, a really bad kind of Bill Murray sort of lounge singer, the character he did on Saturday Night Live. And then I figured, oh, what the hell, I'll just go completely over the cliff and just be this obnoxious, stereotypical New Yorker. And, of course, that I don't know if that really worked, but I thought it was funny at the time. I mean, he couldn't figure out if he was on the street corner or if he was in some lounge somewhere, so what you gonna do? Anyway, finally, getting to the episodes here. Of course, when I made this second volume of 1900 Archive, I went back and looked at the original one, and the original one had kind of gone down in my mind as something of a triumph, but looking back on it, it's better than some of what came before it, but it's still kind of me trying to find my groove making Archive. Parts of it are there, but I mean, on the whole, I think it succeeds more than it fails. But where it really failed was I noticed that, and it didn't come back to me until recording the new one, or writing it anyway, that I was really trying to blur the line between jokes and information and trying to make it seamless, and it just didn't happen. And of course, over time, without really thinking about it, I've kind of put more of a definitive line between where the info ends and where the jokes begin. And some people can really make those two disparate areas, seemingly disparate areas, work together, but I guess I can't. I don't even really try anymore. So Volume 2 was going to be something of an opportunity to try it in a more straightforward fashion. And of course, I need to go back even further. I hadn't even really planned on ever doing a second volume of this. I guess maybe I figured I said all I could say on the first one. And getting back to the first one, I do have kind of mixed feelings about it, in the sense that while I felt like I, at the time, did a fairly good job on it, and maybe not so much in the long run, it was when both my parents wound up in the hospital, and I was running back and forth between the hospital and home and trying to do everything and trying to make another Archive episode, and everything just all at once. And so that episode always has kind of that little bit going in my mind, but trying to take it in context, I guess it's not so bad. But anyway, I've been getting requests since the original 1900 Archive to do another episode. And like I said, I wasn't sure if I could really go anywhere with it, but when I started to entertain the idea, I went back and looked through my files of the original one, and I found some commercials that I did not do because I couldn't find a home for it, or I just felt like it didn't quite pass muster. it got me thinking, well, yeah, I think maybe I can do this again. Like, I had an ad for a Let's Make a Deal 1-900 line with Monty Hall, and I thought it was a good ad, but I didn't have anything to put it up against, so I went back and I started looking for other kind of contests and trivia line stuff. And I'd already done that anyway, because I realized that, wait a minute, I've already posted some of that sort of thing to Archive Annex. I've already done the 1976 ad trivia line for movie tickets and that sort of thing. So I think I can actually make this work. And I found that I didn't, even though I mentioned, say, the Santa Claus lines in the first one, and I spent a little time with them, I didn't really give it a full fair shake. So that was another chance to go back and go through at least one ad that I had that I didn't do, and finding some new ones, like the one here from Chicago, the 976-33331 one. So getting back to more recent concerns, this episode was the last thing I got done before Christmas 2014, and it seems like I just hit the ground running right after Halloween. I had some seasonal jobs lined up, and I was just really busy, and I was trying to get all the episodes for the rest of the year out of archive and at least the first of the new year. And somehow, by some miracle, I pulled it off. And so I finished this episode while working on an odd job. I'd be working at night, and I'd be at home doing archive during the day. And so I was able to wrap it up, and I got it out the door, and I uploaded it, and it came up clean. And on Christmas Eve, Christmas Eve was my first day off. And so I was just really looking forward to taking some time off, and I hadn't been Christmas shopping yet or anything, so I'd been out and been doing that, and I came back home, and it was probably about 5 p.m., and before I sat down to start wrapping and stuff, I decided I would check my email. Of course, I'm known to do that. And I noticed that there was something in my inbox from YouTube saying copyright claim, and it had just arrived about 2 minutes earlier. And I opened it up, and it was a note on behalf of WWE, or more accurately, it's from WWE, just using YouTube as an intermediary, as a middleman. And it said that we have manually reviewed your video, and we're going to take action against you, and so on and so forth. And it was very short, but it said everything that you really don't want to hear. And so, of course, I immediately went and deleted the video. And I was just thinking, I've uploaded stuff to YouTube before for archive, and several days after the fact, it'll get hit by the content ID bots. But I'm usually able to fight it. Archive is fair use. It's a review, it's educational, it's parody, it's all those things wrapped into one. And if it's a commercial, I have to use the whole thing. But if it's a video that I'm doing or a record, I just use pertinent bits. But one of the ads in here, and as it's seen in that big old gap in the middle of the episode, it was for an ad that I thought was really funny, but better yet, as far as I knew, bore no relationship to anything like the WWE, and it was Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. Now, I don't know if they really do or not, but it didn't have anything on it when I found it, and so I figured I was probably pretty good. I'm talking over most of it. It fits in a context, but I just couldn't believe that I was getting hit at 5 o'clock on Christmas Eve, and I'm just thinking, what kind of awful person does something like that? I had this mental image of Vince McMahon sitting in his office getting his jollies by going after people on YouTube on Christmas for little clips of stuff, which just kind of got to me. I mean, I understand they don't want, their matches reposted, and I guess they've been having some sort of image problem. They're trying to kind of bury some of their older stuff. But to me, it was just like, is this really enough to concern you?
Here it is, the UFO hotline.
So initially, when I got the note from WWE, as I said, my first thing I did was I deleted the video before they could really take action. And it crawled up my ass, I'm not going to lie. But I also figured, you know what? Screw it. It can wait. And so I just went and I started wrapping presents and all sorts of stuff. But, when something, at least for me, when it crawls up my ass, it tends to stick there for a while. And I had gotten through the night, and I'd been to my parents the next morning, and there was going to be a big gap between Christmas morning and Christmas dinner. And I figured, you know what, I just need to do this. So I came back, and I figured I'm just going to cut the bit of the episode out. And I came home, did that, and I figured that's not good enough. And so I decided what I would do is I would put in via text the transcript of that ad. And I just figured that was probably the biggest middle finger I could give to them. And of course, having said all of this, obviously there will be no wrestling stuff ever on Archive. It's just not worth it.
If that was you too.
On a happier note, I think this episode, for all its problems, I think this actually may have turned out a little better than the first one. I didn't have quite the idea. I was my first inclination was to try and resurrect the supposed 1-900 archive number from the first episode, and I figured, nah, I don't really need to do that, and maybe this one should be more about the ads. And as I mentioned earlier, it gave me a chance to go back and visit some ones that I just couldn't use in the first episode because I just couldn't make it work in context, like this one with Monty Hall and Let's Make a Deal. And by this point, I'd accrued some numbers in my own collection, some ads for numbers, and so I could finally take a look at those. And I just think it's an all-around more consistent set, and I like this ad here for the math line just because it seems like it could have been so easily abused, and I'd love to know how long it lasted. Sometimes I'd find an ad and I would try and look into it, try and find out what I could, but 9 times out of 10, if not more, you just can't. The Mr. Smith ad about the short-lived sitcom on NBC, I was able to find some stuff on the show, but not necessarily on the line, in fact, that ad that was there is really the only proof of that line's existence because nothing is mentioned in anything that I was able to find about the show. So, hats off to Rick Klein at Fuzzy Memories for having that little bit of the puzzle there.
Imported for Chevrolet.
Import. Another nice thing about this episode is that I was able to not just, as I said, get some new favorites out the door and stuff from my own collection, but stuff that I'd had sitting around. And another ad that I had found fairly recently is the one right here in the commercial break, the Is Elvis Alive hotline. And when I first saw it, I thought, what? Why does this exist? And this was actually in the running to be riffed at some point in the What's the Point line segment, but I figured it was just so batty on its own, and as far as I know, it doesn't exist anywhere else. This is from my own collection, that maybe it's just best seen kind of on its own so everybody can draw their own conclusions about it. And indeed, it's the sort of thing that I might have called Had I Been of Age in 1988, just out of sheer curiosity. I mean, I'm not really a huge Elvis fan. I think I can say I'm probably a casual Elvis Presley fan, but it's just the sort of thing I might have called just to hear what kind of insanity would come out of the other end, And another favorite ad in here, and it's really grown to be one of my favorite ads I've ever done on Archive, and that is for the French-Canadian mystic JoJo, as she calls herself. Her name is Jocelyn Savard, I believe. And when I saw that ad, like I mentioned, some of these ads, I'd see them, and I'd just have to see if I could find something more on them, see if I could find the story or something to build in to the riff sequence or something. And I didn't really build anything in, but I was really tempted there to try and put in a Where Are They Now segment or, some sort of small history lesson. But I realized I'd had most of the script written by that point, by the time I dropped it into the Psychics segment, that the episode seemed to have its own rhythm, and I didn't want to disrupt it. I mean, most of the episode, it's host segment, block of ads, host segment, block of ads, and I didn't want to disrupt that. But she is indeed still active. I'll tell you what I do know. Her name is Jocelyn Savard, and she's still active. She has a website, www.jojosavard.com, which is active as of this recording. And nowadays she seems to be more into giving horoscopes, but she also seems to be kind of that old-fashioned sort of Hollywood BS sort. I'm not sure how to put that nicely. If you're familiar with the amazing Criswell, who was the self-proclaimed seer who appeared on the Johnny Carson show and in the Ed Wood movies, that sort of thing. So it was kind of cool to see, weird as it is, to see something like that still going on. I mean, perhaps I'm romanticizing it a bit here, but to see kind of that really odd tradition being carried on. Now, this ad here is also from my collection, and this one, I remember I was in high school when I taped it. I think I was in high school, and I saw it, and it was during a Kids in the Hall marathon, and I initially wasn't entirely sure if it was a sketch or not, because it kind of looked like something that would appear there. And I guess that's kind of the key to these ads for me. I mean, here's finally the JoJo ad. Stuff that, and that's archive in general, stuff that could very well be a sketch on a comedy show or a bit of satire, but it turns out to be true. And I think that's kind of important to note, especially these days, because I think we've kind of gotten to a point, especially here in the States, where we like to think that we're really self-aware and all, but then you see what's going on, and you see the ads on TV, and you see a lot of the shows on, and they don't seem to realize just how completely absurd they are. And you watch the cable news channels. That's something I really like to go after on all of them, not just everybody's favorite target, Fox News. They're all like that. They seem to be so completely blissfully unaware of themselves. And here we are getting back to this ad. Here's an ad that has it seems to really believe itself. This guy, I can picture that guy possibly working for the line. I hope he wasn't an actor. If he is, he's a really, really bad one. But it's the kind of thing that you would just think would be a joke. This cannot be real. And as I said, I think that's a big part of how archive functions. It was such an early favorite. I mean, it's because... So, jumping ahead here, I want to discuss the last segment of this episode, which, of course, is still a few minutes away, but it's the adult lines. And as I said, I wanted to try and recapture everything I did right about the first one, but I also wanted to move on and go into some other areas. And actually, my first inclination was to not do any adult ads in the traditional sense. I knew I wanted to do kind of the fetish line thing that I'm discussing here, but it came up a bit short. I couldn't find anything that either explicitly was a fetish line or something that would be an unintentional one. And so I realized, going back, it just took, like it did for, say, the Let's Make a Deal ad, that all I had to do was just dig back and look at the stuff that I did not use for the original 1-900 archive episode and go, yeah, maybe I should take another visit to the well here. And I even mentioned in the original 1-900 archive that I came up with just a ton of adult ads, 1-900 number ads, and I guess that was just the thing. And I knew it was something that probably everybody would want to see, and so I just figured, why the hell not? And here we are with the bit I spent 6 minutes on earlier. Anyway, the adult ads, there were a few ads that I, for whatever reason, did not use the first time around. One was for the 976 number out of Philadelphia with to be perfectly honest, a not-so-attractive woman sitting on a couch wearing a not-so-attractive outfit, and her teeth are all crooked and all, and I really don't remember why I didn't use that one the first time. I guess maybe I was trying to intentionally keep it more blatantly sexy. But with this one, the overriding theme became, and I even mentioned it, or I hint at it at least in the host segment beforehand, that it's the sexiest, thing in archive history. Which of course it's not. The initial concept was to find the least attractive things of those adult ads. So you got the one with what looks like a 15-year-old girl lying on her bed wearing a tablecloth on the phone and, very awkwardly spitting out her lines. And you have, as I mentioned, the woman from the ad from Philadelphia. But I had to break it just a bit because one ad that I had, and the first time around that I didn't do, was one that I had seen on Fuzzy Memories from 91, and it was actually pretty well made. The production values are pretty good by the standards of these ads, and it's the last one seen in the segment. And when I first saw it, I thought, I can't really say anything about this, but I guess it was just the fact that I was just spending so much time working and just trying to get stuff out the door, and I was feeling kind of punchy, as I said, that sometimes that kind of works in your own favor. I try not to push myself that hard anymore just because it does catch up with you, and all you need to do is look at some of the later episodes of season 2 to realize that it can really hit you pretty bad, but it worked out in my own favor. The ad that I'm talking about, it's the last one in the show, and I just started yelling. I noticed a little bit of smoke coming up on the side of the screen, even though the woman had lit a match and the smoke was coming out what appeared to be on the other side of the screen. But for a brief second there, it looked like her hair was on fire, and I just ran with it. And so it was also a nice time to try and take a little comment on those that would go at me on YouTube or something that would say that you're insensitive and all. And I'd like to think that I'm pretty sensitive, actually. I'd like to think that I have a pretty good grasp on the human condition, as it were. I'm sounding kind of like an ass here, but I just figured it would be a good time to make a little comment on that and take a little knock at myself, because I'm well aware that these ads, these adult ads, they objectify women. I get that. And had there been ones that objectified men, I would have, really blatantly, I would have used those, but it doesn't work that way. And that's where the point goes to the ladies, because I think they're hip enough not to fall for that generally. And it's the guys that we can't seem to get our brains out of our pants, Have a thing for robot girls?
Call 1-900.
Damn. So we're getting down to the last few minutes of the episode here, and I don't know if I quite have enough to say about this to get it over the finish line, but whatever happens, happens. Anyway, the only thing aside from the WWE thing that sticks up my craw about this episode is not necessarily my performance in the host segments, but the lighting. I just could not get a consistent look out of it. It was one of those ultra variable cloudiness days, those classic Colorado sort of days. And I admit, my favorite look for archive is maybe not the wisest one to have. I like it when the sun is out just right and it's coming through the window, and there's a certain warmth to it. There's a certain glow to it. It doesn't look like a set. And it's not really a set, I guess you could say. Technically it is, but it's just as much really my shelf behind me that you see during the box segments. So I think it fits. It fits the mood, but I just couldn't get it to work. It would be a bright, burning sun one second, and then it would be borderline nighttime the next. And I was trying to light the room just with lamps and stuff, my kind of artificial setup that I use sometimes. And it would get sabotaged because then the sun would come out, and I just could not get that look consistent. So that kind of bugs me a bit. But on the whole, I think this might be a little better package than the first 1-900 archive episode. There's some jokes in here that I think I could have done better, but then it becomes just an issue of, well, you have to get a new one out every so often. It can be a process to get a new archive episode out the door every 2 weeks. So I guess it's the price you pay. Before I wrap it up here, I do want to reiterate one more time, as I've said before, that this episode would not have happened without the viewers, and don't be afraid to send me those ideas, and worst I can say is no. So, that's really about it. I'm going to shut up now and let you listen to a little bit of Arthur Collins over the end credits here, and Ben here from the archive. I'll see you again soon.